Okay, and here we are with Unit 5, Lesson 3, graphing linear equations again. Okay, two different objectives this time. This time, we're actually going to be graphing lines, okay, and doing all the work for them. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, here are some steps to graphing a linear equation that we're going to have you follow. Okay, the first step is to rewrite the equation in function form, if necessary. So we just talked about that the last lesson. Function form means y on a side by itself. Sometimes they will give you the equation with y on a side by itself. If they don't, you need to rewrite it so that y is by itself. Okay, function form. After you've done that, you're going to make a table of values using your new equation that you've got. Okay, and you're going to use those 5 values right here that we were talked about in the last lesson for your inputs. Okay, your x values, and then we're going to fill in a table of values, which is kind of like what we showed you one of those in the last lesson too. After you've got your table of values filled out, you're going to plot the points, okay, put them on the grid, and then you're going to connect them using a straight edge, okay, make a line through them. Lines, again, have to have arrows on the end. Use a straight edge. I don't want to see anybody freehanding these, and I will be able to tell. Okay, if you freehand and don't use a straight edge, then we will make you redo it. Okay, a straight edge can be a ruler, it could be your planner, it could be the edge of your book or a folder, just something to make your line straight. Okay, and for all of these graphs that we're starting with, these are called linear equations. Linear means line, so all of these graphs should form a straight line. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. So here's an equation, y plus 2 equals 3x. Okay, so again, the first thing we need to do is get this equation in function form. So I need to get y by itself. Well, that's pretty easy on this one. I should be able to do that just by subtracting 2 from each side. And these cancel, and I get y equals 3x minus 2. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in here. Y equals 3x minus 2. Again, my x values that I'm going to plug in are always the same. I've got negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. Now I'm just going to go ahead and plug these into the equation. So I'm going to start with y equals 3 times x, 3 times negative 2, minus 2. Well, 3 times negative 2 is negative 6, and negative 6 minus 2 is negative 8. So my ordered pair is negative 2, negative 8. Okay, now next one I'm going to plug in y equals 3 times negative 1 minus 2. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. Negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5. So now I've got negative 1, negative 5 for an ordered pair. Then y equals 3 times 0 minus 2. Well, 3 times 0 is 0, minus 2 is negative 2. Then y equals 3 times 1 minus 2. 3 times 1 is 3, minus 2 is 1. So I got an ordered pair of 1, 1. And lastly, y equals 3 times 2 minus 2. 3 times 2 is 6, minus 2 is 4. So my last ordered pair is 2, 4. Now if I've done this right, I should be able to notice a pattern in my y values. Okay, my pattern here is I'm adding 3 as I go down the chart. So negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5. Negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 3 is 1, and 1 plus 3 is 4. For linear equations, that should always happen. There should always be some pattern between these numbers. Okay? Well, now we got to go ahead and plot our points. Negative 2, negative 8. That is right down here. Then negative 1, negative 5. And 0, negative 2. And 1, 1. And 2, 4. Okay? Now notice before I plotted my points that I made my coordinate grid here. You're going to have to do that on your graph paper. Okay? You'll have to make the horizontal and vertical axes. Oops, I should probably get this back where it goes here. Oh, maybe not. We're good. Okay. You have to plot the horizontal and vertical axes. Okay? So that means that you're going to have to make the up and down line and the side to side line, and you're going to have to number them. Okay, number them in a way that makes sense. Alright, so this time it was pretty easy for me to number by ones all the way around, so that's what I did. Now when you notice my points, I should see that they should make a straight line if I connected them. Now again, you use a straight edge. Because I'm on my iPad, I'm going to try to freehand it. Okay, that's what happens when I freehand it. It's not perfectly straight, but you get the idea here. This is why you don't freehand though. Okay, I want straight edges. And of course, because the line, it should always have arrows on the end of it. Alright, let's go to the next example. Okay, here's another one. We got 3x plus 2y equals 1. Again, the first thing we want to do is get this in function form, y equals. So I'm going to start by taking away my x's. Okay, and I've got 2y equals 1 minus 3x. Then I need to divide by 2 on both sides. And these cancel. I get y equals, and again, I could leave this like it looks with 1 minus 3x over 2, or I could simplify it and say that 1 divided by 2 is 1/2, minus 3 divided by 2 is 3/2 x. Okay, you could put 1.5x, but it's better in this case, we talked about this before, it's better to leave this like this, okay, for graphing purposes. So y equals 1/2 minus 3/2 x. So now I'm going to take that and put that over here, of course. So y equals 1/2 minus 3/2 x, and plug in those same 5 values that we're going to use. Okay, now again, you should fill in all of this stuff, okay, and I want you to do that for this video. Mr. Ayers is not going to, just because I think I'm going to be a little scrunched for space on my iPad here. Okay, and I'm going to run into this column. But you need to fill these in with the work. So I need to put y equals 1/2 minus 3/2 times -2. And so on. Okay? And then you need to come out with y values and the xy values. And then graph this. Okay? I want you to finish this problem on your own, and I am going to check this when I check your notes. So you need to make sure that this problem gets finished. Okay? Again, that's on your own. Alright, so I'm going to the next example. Alright, so you notice this graph only says y equals 2. Okay? Well, it's already in function form. We don't need to change that. But table of values wise, I didn't put a table of values on here because it doesn't matter what I put in for x. Y always equals 2. That's what this is telling me. So I'm going to use the same x values I've used, -2, but y equals 2. That's what the graph tells me. If x is -1, y still equals 2. If x is 0, y still equals 2. And so on. Then I'm just going to go ahead and connect the points. And you'll notice that this makes a horizontal line. Okay, if a graph is y equals, then it is always a horizontal line. Because the y never changes. Okay? Y never changes on that one. So just goes straight across. And let's go on to another example. Now here I've got an x equals line. Okay, the first thing that you were told to do was to write equations in function form with y equals. Well, there's no y here, so I really can't do that. Okay, this just tells me x equals -3. So I'm going to just pick some points for y. I'm going to use the same points for y that I usually use for x here. Okay, but no matter where I put my y, my x is always -3. So I'll use -2 for y, and x is -3. I'll use -1 for y, and x is still -3. And 0 and -3, 1 and -3, and 2 and -3. Sorry. And so my actual ordered pairs here are I've got -3, -2, -3, -1, -3, 0. But you'll notice my x is always the same, it never changes. And look at what kind of line this makes. Okay, the y equals made a horizontal line. This one, x equals, makes a vertical line. So if it's x equals, it should always be a vertical line. And let's go to the last example. Okay, this example says to graph the lines and then name the coordinate where they meet. Okay, well, I've got a line that says x equals 5. So again, that's a line that just goes vertically along x equals 5. So no matter what y is, x always equals 5. Then I got a y equals 4 line. So that's a horizontal line going across at y equals 4. And this says to name the coordinates where they meet. Well, the coordinates where they meet is right here. Okay? And that is at 5 and 4. So you'll notice that the coordinates where they meet are always just going to be the x and y values you're given. So if you're told to plot an x equals line, a horizontal line, an x equals line, which is a vertical line, or a y equals line, which is a horizontal line, then the points where they meet are always just the x and y values you were given. So the x was 5 and the y was 4. Alright, if you got any questions on graphing, make sure you ask them, because this is the most important unit we've probably done so far, and you will be graphing a lot over the course of the year. So this is a unit where you really want to take your time and make sure you do things correctly and understand them. So again, if you have any questions, make sure you ask. Otherwise, good luck on your homework and happy graphing. Enjoy.